Yeah, we wait for a few more minutes. More people coming, more. Yes, we will be starting in about 5 minutes or so.
Hi, everyone.
Hi there. Right. Filipe has joined. Okay, I guess we can get started. We're nearly 40 people. So let me maximize my screen. Okay, so welcome everyone to another AI and Creativity Meetup. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the organizer of the AI and Creativity Meetup based in London. My name is Stelios. I've been in the area of data science and AI for 10 years. But in the last couple of years, I've developed a fascination around the space and the intersection of AI and art. My work in general is a blend between academia and research and development and applications. I'm working on various projects, including with some universities. I've also written up a book called The Decision Maker's Handbook to Data Science, which is a very high-level introduction to the topic of data science. If anyone wants a copy, feel free to send me an email. This book is also relevant for artists that want to get involved in this area because it's really provides a very high-level overview of the area. It doesn't really get technical or anything like this. And I'm also part of an artificial photography collective called IX Machina. This goes back to my fascination with the world of art. And I've been organizing this meetup for about a year and a half now. Initially, we were organizing these meetups in person in London. Now we started organizing them now online because of what we've been going through. But somehow this has worked out great because we had the opportunity to interact with people from all over the world. Like in the previous meetup, we had the chance to have people from the Obvious Collective. Sometimes we also had people from the States and other countries. So our community is really growing. And we try to have this kind of meetups every 1-2 months or so. And really the goal of this meetup is to just bring everyone together, whether we're talking about artists, data scientists like myself, people fascinated by AI. It doesn't matter, right? It's really a meetup so that all the different types of people can blend and exchange opinions. And we're pretty much open to any kinds of suggestions around speakers from people who want to promote their work, to people who want to talk about more technical aspects, as long as the topic starts upon art and technologies like AI and blockchain. So today, we have an amazing lineup of speakers. The first one is going to be Alexandra from Electric Artifacts. She's going to talk about the work that they're doing in Electric Artifacts, which is, I mean, I'm going to let her speak about this because there are many, many things happening. And then we have Crystal Ding and Filippo Rosati, who are working with Electric Artifacts. And also Kadim James from the Immersive Kind, as well as Lucy Wheelers from the Immersive Kind. So Crystal Ding is going to talk about her exhibition, she's doing with Electric Artifacts. I'm really looking forward to this. Kadin is going to talk about some of the work happening with Immersive Kind. Again, I don't want to spoil anything. And finally, Filippo, who is also working with Electric Artifacts, is going to be our last speaker. I know Filippo is great in many of the, not only in that, but also in some of the theory and concepts around AI and art. So I'm really looking forward to Filippo bringing in a very nice conclusion to the whole conversation. And he will have some time, I mean, ideally we don't want the meetup to run for more than an hour and a half because, you know, many people suffer from Zoom fatigue these days, but if we have some time left towards the end, we're probably gonna run an open Q&A session, a bit like a panel, so that all our speakers can interact with everyone in the audience in a more free-flowing kind of way. And we do this pretty much, we try to do this in every meetup because we want to try and replicate a bit of like the live experience, right? Because now that everything is happening over Zoom, it's not very easy to meet people and speak to them in person. So we're trying to find other ways to facilitate conversation and connections between individuals, because this is what this meetup is about, right? It's not a webinar, okay, it's a meetup. So the goal is for people to try and interact, to learn from each other, to make new connections. So a few things about the logistics for today. We're going to dedicate around 10 to 15 minutes for each speaker, and there's going to be a Q&A after each presentation. Keep in mind that if we have enough time, we will hopefully have also an open Q&A at the end, which involves all speakers. I'll be the moderator for the meetup, so please mute yourselves, and if you have a question, then you feel free to write in the chat, and then I'm going to ask our participant this question. And a final note, IX Machina, our collective, is recording a documentary around the topic of AI and creativity and blockchain. This meetup is being recorded and will be uploaded on YouTube, and maybe some part of this recording will be used in the documentary. If anyone has an issue with this, they don't want their name to appear or anything, please let me know. We respect data privacy. Then again, if someone wants to help out with the documentary and they want their name to be displayed pretty prominently or help in other ways, again, feel free to drop me a line directly. So that being said, I guess we can start, and now I'm going to allow screen sharing, and I will kindly ask Alexandra to share her screen if she has a deck of slides. If not, that's fine, and I will mute myself.
Thank you so much, Stelios. I will give a brief intro and then I will share my screen, but I think the most practical thing would be to share electric artifacts and the different elements that we have. So hi everyone, my name is Alexandra. I have been working at the intersection of arts and technology for a long time. So in 2016, I was part of the launch team behind the .art domain, .art top level domain. So that gave me an opportunity to work with many different members of the arts community, especially digital artists, because they experimented with creating web-based works, and we had a chance to launch many exciting partnerships in the space, really exploring and pushing the limits of technology. And it wasn't until two years ago when I realized that there is an opportunity to launch a space for having digital exhibitions online for artists, and it allowed us to create a space that would act almost as an intermediary between artists that are at an early stage of their career but not yet represented by a gallery to get noticed by a wider audience of patrons, but also for established artists, especially after what happened with COVID. It's actually accelerated our launch to continue exhibiting and to continue the dialogue and having their work seen by everyone online. So our electric artifacts launched in September 2020. It was just last year, and since then we already had the opportunity to launch 3 exhibitions. So I'm gonna share my screen now to show you how it looks like. The platform was really to create a space not only to launch exhibitions, but also to have an editorial channel, a space for events where we can keep our community engaged and educated about what is going on. So our first show, our first inaugural exhibition, brought together many different artists, both established and emerging, across many different disciplines. We wanted to show the variety of arts that is currently in this space. The way our platform works is each artist would have a dedicated page, which in turn would allow them to exhibit a certain amount of works. We even added sort of audio guides for artists to walk through their audience through the different works that are being exhibited. So the second show launched in December. It was Vacation at the End of the World, and part of our sort of bigger theme of techno-romanticism, where almost like a biennial, we decided to not only invite curators to curate selected exhibitions, but also to set a theme. And techno-romanticism is something we've been exploring ever since December. It is still running until April for our next show. And it's really about re-evaluating the relevance of romanticism in new media art today. And this is the context within which our most recent exhibition with Umanissimo Artificiale, called Uno Nessuno 100.000, actually came to life. And I personally have been exploring AI for a very long time as well. In the last couple of years, I wrote several articles also telling the story less from a theoretical standpoint, more from the market standpoint, in terms of how the works are being commodified, and especially with the case of Obvious, how the narrative is being displayed. Some of the artists that we exhibit. So here are some of our artists. Crystal will talk a bit more deeply about her work, and Filippo will set a more theoretical context. But I also thought it's really important to mention, as a platform, we are still limited by the amount of sort of people in our team. So while we try to engage as much, like as many artists as possible, it still offers its certain limits. And that's why we have been recently exploring opportunities of scaling this. And of course, the whole NFT boom has opened many different alleys for actually growing the community and almost becoming a marketplace in this space. So I think this is the direction of our future, once we find sort of team members and co-founders who would like to join us on this journey. But in light of this, we're really excited. It just so happens that tomorrow we're actually releasing the first sort of NFT drop with one of our artists, Michael Taika, where he actually used an alternative to Ethereum. So we're running it on Tezos, which has much lower fees and also a much smaller carbon footprint. So I think, yeah, at this point, I'm going to stop my camera. So this is the current situation where we are now, and I am extremely thankful to Stelios for bringing us here, because I've been following the meetups for a very long time, and this is the first time that we have an exhibition completely dedicated to artists exploring artificial intelligence. So I thought it would be a perfect opportunity for us to join and have a conversation together.
Yes, thank you, Alexandra. This was very insightful. Now it's the time for a Q&A, but I'd like to start leading with a question. That's more of a practical question, and I do want to make this event about NFTs. For anyone interested, we're thinking about running an event about NFTs next month because it's a very hot topic. But I'm going to ask a technical question. How easy would it be for someone who's not familiar with blockchain or or NFTs to upload their artwork on Tezos? Because I'm sure there must be many artists in the audience who are thinking about this. And maybe they try to upload something on OpenSea and then they show what the Ethereum gas fees are now because of DeFi, and they're like, oh my God, need to find something cheaper.
This is exactly why we just published an article, a step-by-step guide. It says a guide to buying, but buying and minting is the absolutely same process of actually setting up an account and things like that. So if anyone is interested, I can later share the link.
You want to share it in the chat so that everyone can see. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, I will share in the chat. I also have to warn you, the system that we picked is very experimental, and it is on it's on purpose we picked it because we didn't want to go for like something big like OpenSea and Wearable. We wanted to support like an emerging community. That's why the platform is going to be live tomorrow, likely. And so, but to be fair, it became a playground for most pioneers in generative art. So if you go to Twitter and you check out the account of Pick@Nunc, which means here and now, you will see how many artists are already experimenting with it, sharing their works. It's also pretty straightforward to start a collection because many of the works are priced at a fraction of what you would normally find on something like Foundation or Super Rare. And it's also like, even myself, I wouldn't consider myself an artist. I experiment with photography, but just because the fees are so low, the cost of experimentation is also very low. So as a test bed, before spending hundreds of dollars on minting, I would use this platform just to see how it works. But again, there are shortcomings on the UX. So be prepared.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned something around the UX to me that you can only see basically the images as they're published. So if you want to go back into like 1 month ago, then it's not very easy to navigate or something like this.
Oh yeah, many things are, it's actually a single developer running this thing, but he has help of the community. So many people from the community are supporting him on different tasks, but obviously there are shortcomings. And I think today, for example, after like 4 weeks of intensive scaling, today they had to take a break and shut it down to like introduce sort of some new features. But many people around the community have been creating, like Mario Klingman created a whole chart of like all the different works and like making it interactive and experimenting with it. So for those people who maybe weren't there for the early days of blockchain, this is exactly how it probably felt and feels, you know, when you can still find famous artists working together to generate solutions. So it has that community feel to it. That's why we really enjoyed engaging in the conversation.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Maybe we should actually invite them for the NFT event. You know, it's because it's not just about Ethereum, and many things are still taking shape. So NFTs is obviously part of the whole like war between blockchains, I guess. But then you also have decentralized finance, I guess. What probably many people don't realize in this space is that they focus on one thing and then don't realize how all these affect each other. So for example, now gas fees are expensive because of what's happening with DeFi, right? So maybe there are artists who are like, whoa, what is this? Why is this so expensive? But I think it's always going to be very expensive.
Well,
but actually
with layer 2 rollouts, it might not be. But you know, the whole debate that, you know, the miners are planning a 51% attack on for Vitalik. So we'll see, but Matic is coming to OpenSea in a month, which is also supposed to be a much slicker solution and pull those.
Tezos is coming to OpenSea.
Pardon?
Tezos is
yeah,
coming.
but that's probably a bit longer than Matic. But yes, Tezos is coming, and this platform that we are experimenting with, essentially it's the same system. So your objects there would ideally be transferred to your OpenSea accounts down the line, because to have a successful marketplace, you have to have the integrations. Otherwise, you know, you're isolated. Okay,
let me share OpenSea with everyone for anyone interested in uploading their own NFT artwork. OpenSea is very easy to use. You just need the MetaMask wallet.
OpenSea charges you the gas fees for your first mint, which is around $100 to $200 depending on the day. And after that, you can actually upload for free, and the gas fees are subtracted upon purchase. But there is sort of, you're not able to make large additions. So far it was just single editions. Wearable allows large additions, but again, you would have to pay around $50 to create an edition series.
What do you mean large editions?
Like if you want to make editions, basically, like a set of 50.
Okay. So they only allow a small number of artworks in a single collection.
Yes, and we created some works with OpenSea as a collection, and for that first mint, we had to pay some sort of like launch fee that they had. I know they're overwhelmed now, but they are developing really, really quickly. Then you have like curated platforms, but if OpenSea charges you 2.5% commission, the curated platforms charge higher than that, like 10 to 15%. So I think, again, it depends what stage of your career you're in. If you don't even know what this whole thing is, I would suggest experimenting with a low-cost solution and just figuring out what kind of visuals you want to use, what kind of additions you want to make. And when you kind of, and again, there are people buying things there as well. It already has a couple of hundreds of users and collectors. And then once sort of you have that clarity, then you can go and invest your money and time into something bigger.
Yeah. No, I think that's very, very sound advice. And the thing with this space is that it evolves so fast that we have this conversation in 6 months, maybe there's going to be something.
Every day. And there are many alternative solutions out there. The question is, what's their user base? What's their, what integrations do they have? How easily will it be to add certain features? Like, for example, unlockable content, like some platforms don't allow that, some do, some allow you adding attributes, some don't. There are many things to take into account.
I think that Fabio wanted to comment something about Mintable. Fabio?
If I may, yes. I try with it just to do a few tests, and seems to don't charge in advance. I mean, look like a bit like eBay, but if it doesn't charge in advance, maybe something you can all consider if it's like your first experience with this kind of platform. And I also wanted to say hi to everyone because I know almost all the speakers. So hi, everyone.
Almost.
Hi, Fabio. So Fabio is part of our collective, IX Machina, and he also was a speaker in a previous meetup, and I think he's also working with Filippo. Yeah, hopefully, you know, when he has his next exhibition, he can speak again. He's working on many interesting things. But so yeah, I guess thanks, Alexander. If there are no other questions, then I guess we can move on to Crystal, who is going to present her work, which is now being exhibited on the Left Artifacts. Maybe you or Alexander want to share a link so that people can find the exhibition. That's amazing, amazing, cool. So I'm going to mute myself and.
Hi. So I'm new to this. So hello everyone. My name's Crystal. I'm just going to share my screen quickly. So there's this weird thing that happens to you when you start working with machine learning as an artist, especially if you're a non-technical one like me. You start to really relish the loss of control, which is something that I think in general we don't like. We don't think of it as a good thing. Especially, I'm trained as a photographer and a writer, and those are places where it's especially not a good thing to give up control. But actually, I think much of life and the human experience is this constant negotiation exactly between control and freedom. And for me, as someone who's been diagnosed with various mental health disorders throughout my lifetime, it's become something of a sort of critical and central theme to my existence to work out how to negotiate that tension. So the work I'm sharing with you is essentially my attempt to do so. It's part of a body of work called Bits and Pieces, and as Stelios said, is being exhibited in the show curated by Filippo at Electric Artifacts. And it's an attempt to, I suppose, leverage the unpredictability of GANs to get an alternative perspective on self. So something that kind of gets closer to the lived reality of having a personality disorder by being further away. Oops, cannot make this move to the next slide. So the freedom of the creative act, I think, is often the bit that everyone thinks of as the best bit. It's the reward we get after we organize all those meetings, do all that research and have all those deadlines and apply for funding. It's the moment where we kind of get to step into the flow to create. And I think what strikes me in the making of this work is that that moment was pretty much handed over to machines. I gave up the nice bit, so to speak, and then sat back and scrolled around on Reddit while machine learning algorithms made the work. And it's a bit of a curious thing waiting for a computer to complete your work for you, not quite knowing what it's going to produce, but also weirdly familiar. If any of you are into film photography, it's very similar feeling to when you've sent off a roll to develop or you're developing it yourself. And if you're not the world's best photographer, then you're going to be a little bit surprised by what comes back, and often quite pleasantly. And so sometimes I find myself wondering if we won't end up at a sort of similar place with artists and AI. But at this moment, I think what really appeals to me is that surprise and delight that kind of comes of something that you couldn't have sort of come up with yourself. So this image is in the exhibition and it's performance for clinic. And in the original performance, I filmed myself reading my own mental health records from the last 10 years. If you want to see how many words that is, check out my Instagram, where I put them in tiny font because it's a lot. But I picked this image because I think it had this kind of hideous beauty for me in a way that I could not have come up with myself. In some ways, it feels more like a self-portrait to me than an actual photographic self-portrait would feel. And not because the GAN wanted it to be or had any intentions, but because I selected this one out of the images, which actually look a lot more like this. And aside from the fact that looking at this many pictures of your own face is really horrifying, I think what I drew from that particular experience was the realization that reading, even if it's something as dense as your mental health records, is a visually repetitive thing. And so obviously it's going to be something quite simple for an algorithm to kind of get its head round, sorry, excuse the human metaphor. But the image that I selected, which is the one there you can see, is the only one that sort of glitched a bit and somehow spoke to me of something closer to the reality of what I wanted to say. But I think the reverse is also true. Sometimes, this one is an excerpt from Performance 2. Sometimes the GAN would spit out something that feels like it's already preloaded with meaning, and it's a difference of meaning from what the meaning that I was trying to get at. And this is one of the images made from a performance where I performed tearing off my skin as a kind of representation of moments of mental health crisis and that desperate visceral feeling of wanting out. The image that the GAN produced seems to say something about the person getting out, or about some version of self emerging that transcends something. And even though I like the image, it didn't end up making the cut because it sort of feels quite different to what that performance was initially set up to say. And this is the image that's actually in the exhibition, which I think gets closer to the idea of struggle and the idea of the feeling of being trapped. But as I'm sort of explaining this, it's very obvious that the interpretation or any inference of meaning pretty much comes from us, the creators, the curators, and the observers. And working with machine learning tools really highlights your position in that weird space between data and interpretation, where you're basically constantly mediating and constantly trying to find the right balance between control and freedom. And I think that's really what these tools are surfacing for me at the moment. And I count myself as someone who's at the very beginning of that journey. It's not necessarily a new way of doing art altogether. I mean, as I said, my background is photography and writing, and I still lean very heavily on those things. But it's become a sort of new way of engaging with our experience, and not necessarily because the machine says so or tells us how to, but sort of because being human, we can't help but respond to things. And we want to have a sense of not only what something is, but also how it feels for that thing to be the way that it is. And I think that that's the bit that sort of puts the human back in the picture. And it's actually the same thing that's always been there with creative work, the question of how we respond to it as people. So yeah, if you get the chance to check out the exhibition, there's some wonderful artists in there, and let me know how you respond to it, if you wish.
Thanks a lot. This was very, very interesting. I, on a personal level, I find this fascinating because in IX Machina, we're essentially working with, we do what we call artificial photography, that is use GANs in combination with real photography to generate new images. So this kind of work resonates very closely with what we're doing. And there's a question from the audience, which is the question that I wanted to ask you myself, actually. What do you use to create these?
Because I'm a complete noob and can't write any code beyond print hello world, I use Runway ML. Some of you may have heard of. It's a machine learning tool built pretty much for artists. And you set up an account on there, and then you can sort of train your own GANs or use existing GANs there, or kind of do a mixture of the both. I can share a link in the chat if that would be helpful.
Yeah, actually, we tried to get the founder of Runway ML to give a talk on this meetup. So hopefully this will happen sometime soon. But I think it's a great tool for introducing artists into this sort of thing. Runway, please share a link. Yeah. Crystal, if you want to share, or I can share, don't mind.
Sorry, I just sent it to someone directly.
Oh yeah, this happens with me and Zoom as well.
There we go.
So something else which I wanted to ask you, what do you think is the evolution of this space? One of the things that I've been debating is whether there's, I think that many people in this space, maybe they miss out the narrative, like we see many cool artworks, but sometimes there's not a coherent narrative around this. So where do you see this whole thing heading? Do you think that narrative will play a larger role? Do you think new techniques? Do you think we'll move away from images and maybe try to, I don't know, incorporate other things, more video or interaction with other arts? What's like your opinion?
I love this question. I think
I'm
about
glad
this
to
question
hear it.
obsessively.
Oh,
I think about it. I think about it obsessively because I think that it's weird, but we've seen this before in photography. We saw it when Photoshop happened, and the first thing that happened was Photoshop started, and immediately everybody jumped in and made incredibly saturated, crazy things that stretched the tools as far as they could go to find where was the edge of the tools. And I think that's wonderful and is a necessary moment, because that's humans basically going, oh my God, new thing, let me see what the new thing can do. And I think we're sort of in the, I don't know if in the middle or the late stages of that phase, maturing towards a sort of more cohesive and cumulative sense of how to use AI tools. So I'm seeing increasingly people thinking about how to develop the tools towards ways of sort of integrating that. There's this question that sort of constantly arises when you use AI, which is, am I making art about AI, or am I just using AI to make art, or am I trying to use AI to make art about AI? And then I think people get kind of fumbled up in their heads around which bit of that question they're trying to answer. And then obviously when you throw in sort of, some people come from the technical background and are learning the art bit, so to speak, and then other people come from the sort of the art background and are learning the technical bit. And so there's this weird meeting in the middle where it feels like people are starting to come together towards a cohesive sense of what this might be. And I don't quite know what I don't have a vision per se of what it would look like, but I think that it'll be interesting to see where it goes.
No, I think that's a very good answer, and I think the analogy is very good. And where do you see yourself fitting into this? I mean, what would be the next stage for you after this exhibition?
I'm a learn to code. No, I think I know that that's not my strength, and so in a way I've actively avoided it because I know that there are other people who can do it better, and I'm interested in the ideas. So it's weird because I say I'm an artist, but the next thing I'm sort of thinking goes much more back to my narrative and writing roots. Because I'm starting to find the complexity is too difficult for me to tackle visually. So I think on a personal level, I'm following this idea of where does automation get us to in the end, but without a specific medium as its locus. I
see. Fascinating. Yeah, like it's, we'll see. Right. I mean, this is what we're trying to do as well. We're trying to see what the boundaries are, and I guess there's this constant interplay between the technology and the world of art and the public. And I guess with blockchain, things get a bit like more complicated because there's like this whole new technology, and many people are fascinated. But then again, some people think it's a bubble. Many people still don't know how to use it. It's a
bit of a Wild West.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the Wild West. It's like a digital Wild West, right? Nice. All right. So thanks a lot. Thank you. This was very, very, very interesting. And now I'd like to invite Lucy and Lorna on our on our virtual stage. Sorry, I'm going to mute myself. Feel free to introduce yourselves.
Hi there, lovely to be here, and it's really amazing work, Crystal. It's really inspiring, and I can't wait to see it more in detail. So I'm Lucy, and I'm from the Immersive Kind, and I'm also an extended reality artist, and I'm here with Lorna Inman as well today, who's a virtual reality artist. I'm just going to share you the screen of our website as well. So what the Immersive Kind is an organisation it's a platform that supports digital artists and also collaborates with commercial and cultural organisations. We're really interested in the interdisciplinary perspective. And we've been, throughout 2020, we were hosting multiple events around the themes of neuroscience, medical technology, planning places, and also fashion. And we're really about bridging the gap for artists and learning about new technologies, and also the technology organisations learning from artists. And we've had artist residencies as well, and that has included Fabio Rovai, and he is an artificial intelligence artist, and we really enjoyed learning from him as well as collaborating with him. So I'm just going to share you the work of our current artist in residence as well, Zongbo Zhang. Zongbo Zhang is an artist who's working with digital characters and virtual landscapes. So the immersive kind are really excited about exploring this theme of the metaverse as well. So we're coming from the perspective of working with digital artists, artificial intelligence artists, as well as artists involved in thinking about digital counterculture. And I'm just going to show you the Art Advanced technology platform that we have as well. And we're committed to the next generation of artists. And we've been collaborating with Fabio in a recent project with the operator as well on an artificial intelligence project, which I suggest you also all check out. That was for London Fashion Week. So I'm also going to share with you some of my own art practice as well as the videos. And I'm just going to introduce you to Lorna in the meantime. Lorna, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Lorna. I'm a virtual reality artist. I mainly use Tilt Brush to create my work, and I specialise in 3D environment design and storytelling with environment design. So I will be, do you want me to show now, Lucy?
Yes, please.
Okay, great. So I'll show you some of my most recent work. Okay, so this is my website. I'll just show you some of my recent work. So I've recently worked on a 360-degree immersive film. You guys can see it here if you want to. It's also has its own webpage on giramit.world. So this was a project in collaboration with a company called Nutcut. And I'll just show you a little bit, or kind of drag you through a bit and show a bit of the film. So it tells a story of indentured labour. So this was a project about culture and heritage. So when you're,
Lorna, this is all made in Tilt Brush, isn't it?
yeah, so I created this all in Tilt Brush, and you can watch it on your phone or device, but you can also watch in VR. So I would encourage everyone to go and take a look, because we've put a lot of work into it, so we're all really proud. We released this last week and spoke about it at Mozilla Festival. Some other recent work I've been working on is this. So this is something that I created kind of at the beginning of the lockdown last year. And I also sold an image of this as an NFT on cargo.build. So I'll just show a bit of this as well. So yeah, all of these scenes were completely painted by hand in Tilt Brush, which we all know as well has gone open source. So I don't know if anyone's aware of that, but it means that you can you can kind of mess around with it as well, which people are doing, and creating their own apps and software from Tilt Brush now, which is great. I'm also interested in the VR metaverses. So I have an art gallery that I built in Somnium Space, as appointed by the incubator of crypto art. So they have their own museum there filled with art, but they've also appointed a number of artists to create our own galleries. So I have my own gallery space, called it Treehouse. And it houses my 360-degree oil paintings. So these began as oil paintings on huge canvases, some of them up to 3 meters long. And then I digitally manipulated them to be viewed in 360 degrees. So that is just a little bit about me. And I will leave the links to the gearmit.world website. And if anyone wants to take a look, that I'd really appreciate that. So that's all from me.
Thanks, Lorna. I'm just going to now share my work. I saw Lorna's talk at the Mozilla Hubs Festival on Thursday, so it is worth checking out. And I'm just sharing you now my screen, my project. This is a virtual reality project that was made. It was a long project that actually started out as a video installation piece, and then I've reimagined this into a world building project, looking at hyper objects and this idea of time and space being sort of bringing that closer to us. And in this piece, we're looking at consumption, and it's basically this tiger oil petrol. And I'm really inspired by this idea of different objects creating relationships between objects that we wouldn't expect, and looking at those connotations between, for example, with the tiger, the rarity of the tiger, but then also it being affiliated with consumption, and then the same with petrol, and this idea of it existing all around us. And then I've just added this video at the end. This is a very short piece, and I made this last year, and this piece is really looking at tourism and these spaces that we haven't been able to, like places that we can't go to ourselves, or in an object-oriented world, creating it through the computer and reimagining these places. So this is actually a piece that is a very short piece. So thinking about NFTs and how long it took me to make this fluid simulation, it would work quite well. And I'm just going to share with you one other little video. What am I sharing? Yeah. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how Blender as well is a software that can really enable artists to visualize projects that can then be taken into game engine softwares. And for me as an artist, I like to create things in the open source 3D animation software initially as a way to explore my concepts, and then bringing that into Unreal Engine and adding interactivity to it. So as you can see, this is generated these plants, but this is a project that I've still only just started working on, but there is this, I am interested in this idea of creating machine learning 3D plants, but this is why it's exciting to be learning from all of you in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. Oh, so this was a lot of information, but it was within the time limit. So thanks a lot for that. Any questions from the audience? Okay, if there are no questions, I have a couple of questions. First of all, I have a bit of a more like theoretical question. So you're using this term, I know the immersive kind uses this term metaverse. I'm not sure if you defined this or if I missed it, but maybe you'd like to fill us in as to how you define the metaverse and how this relates to your own work.
So to the immersive kind, the metaverse is this idea of this world another virtual world existing alongside us. So it's functioning as separate, but it's also very much a part of our interacting as part of our real life world. What we're really interested in is how the metaverse can bring, like, what it can do good for the real life world, like how obviously how the climate crisis is obviously becoming a pressing thing in the 21st century, and then also alongside that there's this other alternate reality merging alongside this, and we're interested in how these can merge, and like how different artists' research practices can also promote and create a more sustainable and inclusive environment.
Okay, interesting. And are you planning to include AR and VR into this artwork when things open up? Because I can easily imagine both yours and Lorna's artwork being seen through a VR headset in some exhibition space. I would actually be very interested to try this out myself, to be honest with you.
Yes, that would be amazing. We were doing that beforehand, and it was really, really an amazing way to engage with the audience as well. I think when you're using world building projects, when you have someone or a participant entering the space, then you can learn a lot more from how they interact and how they journey through the environment. So I was doing that with the immersive kind before COVID with my project. It's about creating like a narrative, especially when we have these giant landscapes. And Lorna, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that I don't know if you know already about Google Cardboard headsets. So these are actually pretty cool things. You just put your phone in it. And then, so this is what we optimized the film for. So these cost something like, I think they're like under £5, and you can just order one. And then you can watch in VR, and they also have other apps to kind of use VR in if you don't have, you know, your own headset and stuff. So yeah, that's an option if anyone wanted to try that.
I think I might have used something like this in the past, but maybe my phone wasn't that great, and it kind of worked, but it wasn't like very immersive.
Yeah. I think what we're really excited about also is this idea of, as we see multiplayer experiences as well emerging, and this idea of the public realm and bringing multiple audiences, collective intelligence into these extended reality experiences. Personally, from my art practice, I really like the idea of the worlds and the projects being able to traverse through different mediums. Definitely, that's why I think the word extended reality is a really good way to describe the work that you do in these sort of game engine experiences.
Yeah, I really like this concept of including like extended reality and VR, AI interactivity. And I guess if the collective is called immersive kind, it makes sense to go for immersive experiences, right? It's in the name. And Katin, I think you wanted to say something. Katin, are you with us?
I am with you. Hi, everybody. Delighted to be here this evening. And thank you so much for bringing us all together to be a part of this community, Stelios.
Yeah, thanks, Kadin. Kadin is also part, I think, is actually the organizer of the immersive kind, and she's attending all. She's a very active member of this community, helping also support and bring more people to the event. So thank you, Kadin, as well, for being here with us. And unless there are any more questions, we see people saying thank you. You shared the links to the exhibition. It's amazing. So I guess now we're going to move on to our last speaker, Filippo. The stage is yours.
Yep. Thank you, Stelios, and thank you, the previous artists, for their amazing presentations. And so, yeah, I'm the founder of Umanesimo Artificiale. Umanesimo Artificiale is a studio and an artist platform from Italy. In the series of projects that we produce and present, we try to investigate the role of humans in a world increasingly entangled in smart technologies. And we exist to promote the creative use of coding through events when we can do it, workshops, exhibitions, research projects, and curating exhibitions, like now it's digital exhibitions, like the one we work with Electric Artifacts. So the title of the exhibition is Uno Nessuno Centomila, which is one, no one, and 100,000, which is a novel written by the Nobel Prize winner Luigi Pirandello. So Pirandello was an Italian dramatist, a novelist, and a poet. And it was like in constant search of an individual identity, the psychology, and the true nature. I think, I mean, what's interesting and what got me to this theme is that I feel like that at the current stage, at the current stage of artificial intelligence design, we have to decide whether we want it to be merely serve us or to challenge and augment our many selves. And I'm more for the second part. So because I think, and the project that we like to work with is something that it's projects that kind of introspect through collaborating with an artificial intelligence, introspecting in understanding more who we are as a human being, as an individual, and as part of the society. And I think intelligent machines and something which is generative and something that may lead to something unexpected actually really question ourselves. And this was like the point of all the artists that we curated for the show, but like in general, all different projects. And I invited Crystal here to speak because her project really represents, I think, the core of the show. And yeah, I mean, maybe like I just want to keep it very short because I'm pretty sure there are a lot of questions, but I wanted to present one of our latest projects involving artificial intelligence, as well working with Fabio, which has been mentioned a lot in this meetup. So and together with Moises, which is a Mexican artist living in Berlin, and she's also part of the Electric Artifacts show, which I really, really invite you to explore. I don't want to spoiler it, so I let you explore it on electricartifacts.art. So we're working like in sonifying DNA mutations, because around like 15 years ago, I've been diagnosed with neurological disease, and it's part of like mutation in the DNA in the ABCD1 gene, which is actually the title also of our project. And in this case, we use artificial intelligence to actually kind of communicate the complexity of science and the scientific research, especially when it comes to biology and DNA and genetics to make it accessible for a broader audience. And what we did was a soundtrack and a video, an installation and a video. So it's like through an audiovisual artwork, we actually try to bring people inside this DNA processing. And the soundtrack, it's a kind of juxtaposition. I don't know the English exact word, but like in the left channel, you hear the processing of the healthy triplets, DNA triplets, and on the right, the mutated. So the soundtrack, which actually we use just a little bit of sound design. So we took the letters of the DNA, which were like 19,000, and we translated into a MIDI, and the MIDI was processed through an artificial intelligence algorithm, the style transfer. And what came out was really exciting, because like on the left channel, which represent the healthy DNA, was actually very mechanic and quite repetitive, while on the right channel, which is the mutated database, it was very, very complex and articulated. And so we just leave it like that. But we use like a style transfer to actually take that project and kind of make it more accessible to a broader audience. So make this project more musically pleasant, let's say. But yeah, unfortunately, I cannot show much because we're still working on it. We were working on the visuals like this afternoon. Actually, I can just make this experiment and show what we were working on and let you vote. But yeah, maybe at the end. But so it's like our approach, like to artificial intelligence, is like, we're driven by the questions, and most of our projects started like, by defining whether an artificial intelligence is creative or not, you have to start asking what is creativity, and whether an artificial intelligence can be an autonomous, conscious machine, And just by asking that, those are questions that probably will never have answer, or one answer, because if you ask what art is, or what is an artist, who is an artist, to 10 people, probably you got 10 different questions. But just the process of asking it and thinking about it, I think it's it's really worth it, because at the end it's like, what does it mean to be human? And everybody has got their own views, but just thinking about it, it makes you it's a sort of like introspection that probably an artificial intelligence kind of initiate. And that's what we really, really like about, more than, also like pushing like the technological development, because we always try to customize what is open source, or find our own software. But it's more like into the conceptual thing. Is like, what is the message that communicates this project, and how and what kind of questions he arises. So yeah, I think it's time to open to questions, because we are a lot of people. So yeah, and it's more fun and interesting, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Filippo. Are there any questions from the audience? Yeah, I think there is one question.
Yeah, Hannah. Hi, I'm Hannah. I just want to, because it's a AI and creativity thing, as also Filippo said that AI is challenging. It's challenging us to ask ourselves and to reflect on what is creativity, who is the creator, what is art, and so on. And today it was just launched an artwork by Sophia. So what is your opinion on, how do you feel about that? I don't know, maybe it's, you know, the most advanced robot on Earth.
Filippo, is this a question for everyone or for Filippo?
Yeah, I don't know, for you, for Filippo, anyone. I mean, it's kind of interesting, like, because technology is advancing so fast, and I don't know, and everything that is happening during this pandemic, like beginning of the year, it was nothing about NFT, and boom, now it's this NFT craze, and people are going on NFT and losing money, others are earning, and now it's another AI launching an NFT piece of art, and it's maybe they were just sort of reflection for late evening.
Yeah, maybe I don't. I mean, I haven't seen the artwork that you're mentioning, but yeah, I know like the robot. But I mean, there is like an interesting article that I will look for it, and then I will post it on the chat, which was actually differentiating like art made with AI or art made by AI. And that's really, I mean, there isn't like an answer. I mean, even like the researchers, they were not answering. But there is this shift, as you were saying, because like before 2019, before Christie's sold an art piece, people were talking about art made with AI. But then Christie's, in the artwork, in the description of the artwork, was saying, this is an artwork made by an AI, and that's opened another series of questions and stuff. I think it's like in all this. I mean, we live in a world where everything it becomes hype the day after that. So it's just have to, you know, just follow the conversations, because like there's, as everything, you know, it's like, I mean, I've studied business, so there's like this curve, you know, it's like of early adopters and this stuff. And as it was like before, it was like 10 years, now it's 10 days. So you have to let it settle down. And after maybe like the conversations about NFTs, right now it's a lot of things, like in 2 or 3 months, maybe they're, you know, all the people that were like just for the hype, that maybe leave, and then they will start. And that's the problem with artificial intelligence, because like 3 or 4 years ago, actually there were like the professors, or like, you know, the people that actually pioneer into artificial intelligence were so upset, because all this, you know, like newcomers that were coming just, you know, for the quick buck, or just, you know, with they were like, yeah, but they're spoiling the market, because people now are fed up of artificial intelligence. But actually, because it's not something that, you know, it's 1 year, and it's a revolution that, you know, it's the shift of the paradigm. So it's like people, you know, have to take it like slow. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just it's interesting, but you always have to find, you know, try to cut. I don't know whether it's the English expression, but cut the chase of all this, you know, hypeness. But yeah.
I had a comment in there, because I just looked up the art that Sophia, again, I was familiar with the robot, but I wasn't familiar with this portrait that she's drawn. And the first thought that came to my mind was the recent articles about David Hockney having discovered painting on an iPad. And it just seems like this kind of general trend towards convergence, whether it's like, let's take incredibly, you know, exalted artists and give them digital devices, or let's take incredibly complex robots and give them basic human abilities. there's this sort of general sense of like moving in a direction towards the middle that, as Filippo was saying, has just this, the wave of how this happens.
I also wanted to say something, if I can. I really like this thing where we are finally, together again, like art and science. And I mean, it's been like this for a few years now, but if you think about it like more historically, especially, in the last 100 years, I always felt like this connection was gotten a bit lost, and where, the shift of, aesthetic was coming back, etc. But now I'm really happy that, there is a new purpose, and, there is a new acknowledgement where now people that do stats are seen more like a philosopher rather than pure, pure geeks. And, it's like, it's so fun and so like empowering for like this community, have these new tools. And yes, it's something that I just love.
Yeah, thanks, Fabio. I guess that's the whole purpose of this meetup, right? That's why with barely any promotion, within 2 weeks, we managed to get up to 50 participants at one point. Now we're down to 41, which is still a pretty good number, right? And thinking also, you have to take into account how diverse this audience and the community is, which I think is what makes it so great. So I guess maybe before we close, I mean, I think we're pretty much on time. Again, many people, like myself, suffer from Zoom fatigue these days. But I'd just like to ask a question to all of the participants. I like to run these mini panels in the end. And that is where they see themselves and their work in 1 or 2 years from now. Okay, it seems Alexandra is not sure how to answer this question based on this from your expression, so I think she should go first.
Yeah, I have a problem of having a very expressive facial. Wow, I mean, I wake up every day thinking what's going to happen in a couple of hours, because let's be honest, it's every day there's something first. And I think, as you correctly mentioned, soon the hype will be over. So I think that we should use this time as an opportunity to give a push, like a big push for what our organizations, what our practices, what our professions are going to look like in a couple of years. And I think a vision for myself, vision for Electric Artifacts is to become scalable, is to become a destination that can service more artists. And so I think, yes, and I also think that you're right, the hype might be over, but in a couple of years, this will reemerge at a bigger scale, the same way as the financial markets come in waves. And so the best is to invest the time now, stop looking at the headlines, there are distractions, and actually focus on what you do and use this opportunity to get more people involved. Because now for creators and people in this space, finally, like, we're being recognized. Like, who cares that we've been talking about this for a couple of years? Now everyone's paying attention. So we can use this as a momentum to get more people involved in our project.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great comment. Crystal? Where do you see your art and yourself in 1 or 2 years? This seems to be a pretty difficult question to answer for everyone, right?
As Alexandra.
Myself, so as the moderator, I get this privilege.
It's kind of like Alexandra just said, like, ask me in 2 hours and the answer will be. But I do think, I know I'm sort of repeating myself a little bit, but I really struggle more and more to define medium, because it seems more that we move with the ideas and the ideas move very fast. And so it ends up being that whatever medium is right for the idea or at a given moment ends up being the right way for that to be told. So where do I see myself? I have no idea. It's the honest answer. I have no idea, but I know it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I guess that's a good answer. You don't know, but it's going to be interesting. And I guess with everything that's happening, that's a difficult question to answer, simply because technology is moving so fast. Like, I don't know how many of you, when you were growing up, you were like, oh, I want to be an AI artist, you know, or I want to work in blockchain or something like this, right? So we don't know what the future is going to be like in terms of the technology as well. And Lucy and Lorna?
So for me, I think I would be excited to see if there was like more experiences for the public to be involved in through technology and extended reality and artificial intelligence. Also, I think the merging of extended reality with these artificial intelligence tools, I would like to see that development a bit more. Maybe I might get into that. Mm-hmm. And also, yeah, so things becoming a bit more collective as well. The digital experiences that we have, it becoming more of a community and a collective way of experiencing art online.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely it. So you're talking about, yeah, being more collective, more interactive. I guess technology is going to play a huge role in this. Something which I'm personally very fan of is wearables, like EEG wearables. I actually have one somewhere around here. So okay, maybe I hope I'm not getting too much off topic. Actually, that's the thing topic. How do I open this? I'm not sure how many of you have seen this kind of thing. An emotive headset.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, which can measure your brain waves. So this is basically an EEG device. Like you wear it like this, and okay, now look a bit funny, but you get the picture. So other than looking funny, this device measures your brain waves. And what Emotive has done is they've really commoditized to some extent this space. This costs a couple of $1,000, which is much cheaper than what the normal EEG costs, which is probably at least $15,000. And as this technology is getting cheaper, it's probably going to be a matter of time that we can also use this for communication and interaction, right? Right now it's being used for brain-computer interfaces from people who suffer from certain motor disabilities, etc. But I can imagine in the future this being rolled out on a more massive scale. And I guess this goes back to what you mentioned, right? So I think the technology is really pushing in this direction. And you, Lorna?
I just want to say, first of all, that is crazy. And super exciting to think that you're going to be able to communicate with that. That's really cool. Where do I see myself? Not sure. I think 2 years ago, if I'd had said that I was doing this, then I probably wouldn't have believed whoever said that. So yeah, we're moving at lightning speed and stuff is literally changing by the day. It's hard to keep up, especially with virtual reality design tools, clearly machine learning as well. Not that I really use that, but I would like to as well, like that. As well, what Crystal said about them all kind of merging, I can picture that happening more. And I think kind of using tech to our advantage more is going to be a big focus, having gone through the past year and seeing how important it is in many situations. Yeah, I think there's just going to be a lot of developments happening like very soon, and I guess we'll see from there. I'm not sure.
Very soon, and I guess they're going to keep happening, not just soon, but it's going to be a constant process. Yes, absolutely. And you, Filippo, what do you think?
I don't know. It's hard to say. For now, I think what I can say is that I love to see myself in 2 years outside the house, so not in lockdown.
Hopefully.
because here in Italy, we're back in lockdown for another 2 weeks. So hopefully able to travel, let's say.
That's great. And what about in terms of your work? So let's say you managed to get out of the lockdown and you get out of your house.
I mean, so when I started Umanesimo Artificiale, and before, because I was born in Italy, I live here until I was 18, then I traveled. a lot, and I spent my past 3 years before coming back like in Singapore, and so my view, it's I mean, my goal was like creating something like a research lab, like the MIT Media Lab. I mean, that was like my goal, and I was really excited that we got the chance to collaborate with Path for the Electric Artifacts show, which is from the I can't remember what department, but yeah, it's part of the MIT Media Lab. And so I see like Umanesimo Artificiale transforming more into like a research lab, because what I feel like that we need like more this transdisciplinary research lab. So something that makes art, science, technology, which is linked to education, but it's also like very practical. And like all over the world for the past 10 or 15 years, no one was able to I mean, there are media labs all over the world, but no one was able to replicate what the MIT Media Lab did, because there wasn't like a network. But maybe through internet, now we're able to connect, because yeah, maybe the other media labs are not like in Boston, so they don't have like the physical MIT University, Harvard, and all the people that lives in Boston, all the talents, but maybe you can create like a smaller media lab somewhere, and then connect through the internet with these new technologies. And so you have access to a pool of talents which lives all around the world, and then they do research together. And yeah, because this is like, if it doesn't start from this research lab, I don't know where, because right now like the governments and like all the public funding, I mean, they have other priorities. I mean, I've been talking to like the local government here, and like for a year they told me, yeah, but now the priority is like, the COVID and blah, blah, blah. And I think it's like, there's always something like and like on the other side, there's like the academia, and they're like let's say the industry, the companies, but they don't talk to each other. And so it's like, I mean, I would love to transform like Umanesimo Artificiale into this. So it's like right now we're just doing like in a small scale, hopefully like in a bigger scale.
Yeah, that's very interesting. So maybe we can also help you with that. I mean, I have a background in research, and this community can also help you. I think that's a very, very interesting vision, and the MIT Media Lab is definitely a very good reference point for this kind of work. So that's, yeah, looking forward to this. Hopefully it can happen. And so that being said, before we conclude, are there any questions from any of our participants? I think Zaremba, they have a question.
Well, thank you so much, Stelios, for reminding me about that and about that event. I just moved the house yesterday, so I was thinking, oh no, event, I don't have time, but I'm so happy that I came, because it's so fascinating what you all been talking about. One thing that I was thinking about during all of the talks, I was wondering what all of you think about the, obviously, whenever there is a difference in medium, there is a difference in terms of which artists are drawn to that medium, and which artists maybe can grow in that area. There might be also a shift in terms of what the audience likes, or what the audience learn to like. But one thing I was thinking particularly about is that there is, I believe, one of maybe the biggest changes that with art, which is more accessible for when people do not have to go to public places but can access that from home. There's the big group of neurotypical people who I think are just suddenly much more likely to feel that this type of art is accessible to them. And I also think that that might be a group which might in particular be overrepresented in wanting to create in that medium. So on one hand, I was wondering, what do you think about that? Do you think that there is this big shift in having totally different type of groups, type of artists, type of audience? But on the other hand, which is very much connected, I was also thinking while looking at all pieces of art that you've been so kindly providing, is that like with my ADHD, I realized that sometimes there are some pieces of art, especially if they're moving, or especially if they're like some digital art, I find too difficult for me to look at, because it feels like my brain is attacked too much by things. So I just realized while looking at some of the arts today that there's also a shift to some things which might be no longer accessible to me, because I might love a picture and be able to see some pieces of art in a gallery where they are still, where I can approach or withdraw from some pieces that are too overwhelming to me. But if everything is, for example, online, then I might no longer be able to look at many of those pieces because the whole thing is just too overwhelming. So I was wondering, how do you think about that? The fact that there's such a big shift on what is accessible to people and what type of audience or creativity is drawn to that area. Yeah, I think that's the end of my very long question.
Who would like to answer?
I can give it a first crush and then pass on the words to you. So I think definitely us staying home accelerated the adoption of sort of experiencing art by the screen. Can you hear me, by the way?
I can.
It's absolute silence, so I wasn't sure. So this is one thing. Second thing, obviously, many people previously not interested in art had sort of the infrastructure to experience it and a very simple way of acquiring it. So you have people who are investing in cryptocurrency all of a sudden quadruple their investments. And at the same time, you have this marketplace where the feeling is like trading cards. And we all sort of like, as a kid, we would collect stickers, candies, and a lot of like the first art that was sort of created and tokenized was actually following that, like rare Pepes or crypto kitties. The idea was that it's a collectible that you trade, that you pick, and people found it sort of, you know, people who already knew how to use the technology, they found it something very nostalgic and something they've already been doing, is just now they're doing it in a digital medium. And I think that once the attention came there and people, and obviously like, you know, people started being creative with these like digital collectibles, that's when also obviously the artists started experimenting with the technology. And now there are so many creators, and the same thing as this happened to music, where, you know, you would play the old school way, then you had iTunes, same thing with books. And I think this is what finally happened to art. Like after all this time, finally it went to that next level. So there were creators, but this allowed to sort of put a monetary value on them and connect directly with the artist. And like, I personally love supporting artists, whatever like I could buy, whatever I could afford, I would buy. But now, you know, the price points, the starting price points offered a whole new wave of people to be able to launch their collections. And we spend half of our time on the computers, regardless if there's COVID or not, just because we're working. So like our social media, we're checking all the time. So you probably would see your collection if you can check anytime more. Obviously the metaverse, so virtual spaces. I mean, maybe you saw Koenig Galleries, the first gallery that's offline to launch a virtual gallery space where you can enter the metaverse same way as you already would in like World of Warcraft. So same way now you can enter this virtual reality and explore the gallery. So this could be one of the ways of exhibiting arts, like in a virtual fashion as it is. Okay, I'll stop now and pass the words. This is my humble opinion.
Anyone else has anything else to comment?
Yeah, I can just say, I mean, to me, it's like this period. Also, like, it was interesting to understand what I don't like. I mean, because some experiences were like, to me, I mean, there were like nice experiments, but something that I would not keep after, you know, this period, and something that really worked. I mean, some experiments, and I think this period was also interesting in that sense, because I spoke also like with a lot of artists that were not specifically like digital artists, that they have time and they had opportunities to collaborate with other professionals. And I think this experimentation will remain. For the outputs, I don't know. But what was really interesting was like this collaboration between, especially like with people that know how to code or know how to create like a website, with something more like traditional artists. And yeah, but also like the digital divide, because when you talk about like virtual realities and, you know, like all this, if you don't have like an headset, or if you don't have like a Google Cardboard, the experience, it's quite, I mean, you don't get definitely what the artist maybe would like you to get. I don't know, here does Lorna, that she works with VR, so, but I'm pretty sure that if I experience Lorna's work without like a VR, it's not gonna get the what she would like to communicate, you know, because I'm looking like in 2D. And so I think it's like this digital divide. It's I mean, it's very strong in the sense.
Great, thank you. So I think this was a great event, like a great turnout. We had some amazing presentations, very interesting questions. I think now we're a bit over time, and I see quite a few people have already left. So I guess we're going to conclude now. Thanks everyone for being part of this. As I wrote in the chat, I'm going to upload this on within the next couple of days on the blog of the data scientist. So please make sure to go there in 1 or 2 days or register for notifications if you want to see the post. And hopefully we'll be organizing another event for NFTs soon, maybe even as soon as next month. And we hope to all see you again at our next event. So thanks everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Stelios. Thank you, everyone.
Bye, bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Later.
Bye.